Well, good afternoon, everybody. As always, I am very excited for this week's guest. Alfonso is a very well known real estate authority in Canada, and we're going to talk all things real estate investing today. I want to get his outlook on what he sees for 2023, some investing strategies when we're dealing with uncertain times, and really just get his thoughts on the real estate market as a whole right now. Live episode. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box for Alfonso. We'll get to as many as we can. With that, Wyatt, if you can bring on Alfonso. Alfonso, good to see you, my man.
My friend Chad, so long.
It has been a while. How are things in your end? Are you somewhere
Oh,
warm or are you
not
in
yet,
cold
not yet,
Canada?
not yet. I'm leaving on Monday. I got a boots on the ground event in Tampa. You know, I know no one wants to talk about the warm weather now because everyone hates it so much, but I love the warm weather. But I have an event in Tampa. I leave Monday.
Oh, yeah. So you'll be escaping this cold weather that we're afflicted with here north. So I'm with you. I love the warm weather as well. And if I had more time, I'd actually just come and sit in on that event that you're having in Tampa, because that's probably
Hey,
a
you
much
know
nicer
what?
place
Maybe
to be right now.
we can bring you in by via Zoom. It's not
Yeah, not the same thing. I'll just still be in my cold basement. I'll just be imagining that I'll be somewhere warm. Hey,
well, how's the weather by you?
it's chilly. Yeah, it's very cold. I know that the Fahrenheit and Celsius scale levels out. I think -32 is the same for both Celsius and Fahrenheit, and we're not far off from that right now. It is very cold.
Wow. Wow. You know what? That's why, that's why there's not that many people here. It's a warm weather. When I immigrated to Canada, I came here as a refugee. They gave my mom a few options, and she chose Vancouver. It was just because of the weather. And even back home, people are like, "Oh, you guys are going to Canada," you know, and people have to think twice because of the weather.
They really do. And I did want to actually start off with getting a little bit more of your background, because I it was it El Salvador? Was that where you came from? So immigrated with your mom to Vancouver, and then you settled in Ottawa, or what was the story on how you got there?
Oh, actually, it's really interesting. So I came here twice. I was, during the 80s, there was a lot of turmoil happening in Central America, and my mom was a journalist at that time, and she was reporting about all the 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 civil rights abuses that were being committed by our government. Governments don't like that, and eventually she was shut down and illegally detained and brought to prison. So she was going to serve a 40-year sentence there in El Salvador.
Wow.
And so a lot of NGOs stepped in, a lot of other government entities, and we actually were given asylum. So she spent about 3 years there, and then we were given asylum to come to Canada. We came here as political asylum seekers, and we landed in Montreal. And when the second we landed, it was a big, huge story. New York Times, international story. It's a major, freedom of the press and human rights issues and all the war that was happening. And so our government back home actually sent people to find us here in Canada, so we
Wow.
would not share our stories. And eventually we had to flee. So we came in '83 for the first time. I was about 5 years old, and about a year later, we had to flee Canada because it was no longer safe for us to be here. And so we moved to Nicaragua. To make a long story short, Nicaragua was it was a beautiful country. A lot of great things were happening. Obviously, it was a socialist slash communist type of country that ultimately ran out of funding. There was no food, and then ultimately we were in another war, and we left and we came back to Canada as refugees, and we landed in Vancouver. Now I'm 9 years old, and because I've spent so much time going from place to place, if you can imagine, I missed a lot of educational opportunities. It was hard for me to integrate into the education system. Ultimately, when lived in Vancouver, we were in a very bad neighborhood. I started to get in trouble. And then my mom said, well, we should probably move to a place where, my son is not going to get in a lot of trouble. So we chose Ottawa. Ultimately ended up getting in trouble in Ottawa too. But I guess I was the trouble. But that's how we ended up in Ottawa.
Yeah, sometimes it's not that you find trouble, it's that you are trouble, and
Yeah.
trouble just finds its way to where it wants to go. So I can relate to that to some extent. So why real estate then? That's you kind of alluded that you didn't have that traditional upbringing of going through elementary school and junior high and high school and all that. So what ultimately led you to real estate and where you are today?
Yeah, so I wasn't a very good student, Chad. You know, like I, like I barely got through high school, right? And actually, at 15, I had dropped out of high school because I, got in trouble once again. And I'm trying to make sure that this is nice and centered here. Um, Ultimately, I left high school. I left home. I'm trying to figure out how to match you. I want to match you. Okay. So I got in I got into trouble, left home. Um Now I'm like living on the streets, going through some very dark times in Ottawa. And I had a life-changing moment which changed everything for me. I became a dad at
Mm.
17. At 17, now I'm a father. I start taking responsibility over myself, stopped blaming other people for my problems, and I went back to school, got a job, didn't pay well. So as a result of needing a necessity, right, to wanting to provide for my daughter and my little family, I started a business. It was a clothing uh, business where I started selling T-shirts and jeans out of my locker in high school. Ultimately, when I graduated high school at 19, I graduated with this vision of opening my very own physical location. By the time I was 21, I had locations all across Canada, and I was doing really, really well, and I fell in love with being an entrepreneur. I knew that I was going to pursue business for the rest of my life. The problem was that I didn't have any financial literacy. No one had showed me how to invest or put money away or have reserves. I just happened to fall into an industry that was doing this in a time that everything was doing this. By the time there was smaller corrections and changes in the industry, it almost took me out. And so I think it was like over 23 years ago that I said I need a secondary stream of income that's indestructible, and that led me to educating myself, reading books, mentorship, coaching. And what I discovered from all of my research is that the wealthiest people in the world hold their wealth in real estate. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. Not only that, when I was uh, doing my research on all these wealthiest people in the world, I discovered that they have multiple streams of income. And when I started business, I was doing very well, but I only had one stream of income, and I was very vulnerable from that perspective. New new ways of delivering the product, competition, China, all these elements that I wasn't ready for. And so I said, I want to create a secondary, stream of income that's indestructible. And so not only did I make that decision, 23 years ago, but I also said to myself, I want to I want to grow my wealth. And doing my research, no one owned a duplex or a triplex. None of the wealthy people that I read about, they weren't talking about their triplexes or fourplexes. They were all talking about commercial real estate, multifamily. In my case, I made that decision because I thought everyone always has to live somewhere. And so that's how I transitioned into multifamily at the very, very beginning. And I've stayed in this space for over 20 years. And to now, you said it, like I'm an authority in real estate because people know me for being an investor, multifamily. I think I was on a podcast one time, and someone said, "Whoa, I know all these people that have been doing this for a long time, and they said they learned their real estate from you." And she was like, "You're like the godfather of real estate," you know. And I think it was a nice nickname. And I leaned into it, but I'm like the grandfather of real estate because I've been around a while.
How many times have you said, "I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse"?
I actually have T-shirts. Hold on, let me see. We have T-shirts. Let me see. It'd be great if I had it right here, ready. No, I don't have it with me here. Too bad. Too bad. I would have showed you. I make you. Oh yeah, here it is. I do have it. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh because
Oh, that's so good. Making offers you can't refuse. So I was spot on with that then. That's the first thing I thought of, because I know you as the godfather of real estate as well. So you've claimed that moniker by hard work. But when you started, so you had business acumen, had a successful business. What did you need to do to get yourself up to speed to now pivot and go into real estate investing? How did you start on that?
so I knew that I didn't have much time because even though I was successful in my business, but when the market turned on me, I was in a very bad place in my business, and I knew that I didn't have the luxury of trying to figure something out with trial and error. Um, I did have a little money. I sold everything to try to keep my business afloat, and I went through a lot of mindset shifts. I went from being a consumer. I was 21 years old. You're doing well. You're a consumer, right? Wanted to buy the flashy cars, the clothes. I wanted to look the part of success, thinking that's the way that's what successful people are supposed to do, right? They're supposed to show off all their success, because I never had anything in my life. And so I knew I didn't have much time. The clock was ticking. And I always share this with people. There's power in urgency, right? So I was at a point where I was going to lose everything. I had to humble myself and go back and work my business to save my business 9 to 9, 7 days a week. And then I'm working on my real estate, building my empire 9:01 to like 1 in the morning, right? And so my fast track came through mentorship, you know, and in coaching, and that was kind of my fast track. And I remember the like it was yesterday. I remember we used to the marketplace used to be the classified sections. Now it's social media, the Facebook marketplace, and groups, real estate groups. None of that existed. And so you go into the classified sections, and I would see this guy Tony, rent to own, call Tony, this is the number. JV opportunities, call Tony, this is the number. Looking for private capital, call Tony, this is the number. um, Apartments for rent, call Tony, this is the number. I'm like, I gotta call Tony. Right. And so then I called, talked to this guy. I met him. I had a coffee with him, and I said, I want you to be my my mentor." He's like, I don't have time for this. Trying to run my real estate empire. And I said, I'll make it worth your while. And he shot out a number at me to scare me away, but I accepted. And that year I bought 11 properties, right? And
Well,
I've never looked back since.
so, and I am fully on board with that too. And in fact, that's what I say to most people that are looking to get into industrial real estate investing. I said, if you can find somebody to mentor you, that's the fast track way to do it versus making those mistakes yourself. So I want to dive into that a little bit more. And Beverly joined in, said, "Love
Oh,
Alfonso's
Beverly.
story. Thank you for sharing." Thanks for joining in, Bevan, for the comment. And again, if you have any questions for Alfonso as we go through here, put them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. So when on that mentoring side, what can somebody expect? And we can talk about some of the services that you have as well. But for someone that perhaps they're in a different asset class, perhaps they're looking at industrial or office or retail, and not specific to you, but what should somebody look for in a mentor, and what can they expect to pay for that services? And then we'll get into like what you could expect to get or what you should be
Yeah.
even including in that expectation. But just to start, what would you ballpark someone should be looking for, and what could they be paying to get a mentor?
Mentorship is such a interesting word because it means depending of who's receiving that or who's listening to that word, it's going to mean something different to everyone. And people often confuse mentorship with coaching, right?
Mm.
Coaching is very specific. It's a transfer of information. So Monday at 7, we have a 1 hour coaching call, and the idea is for me to transfer what I know to you, right? That's the transfer of information. Coaching is, you know, a coach has to be good at being a coach, how to bring the best out of that individual. And often people, when you ask people, who do you want to, if you wanted to learn how to become a better uh, better golf player, who would you go to? Tiger Woods or Tiger Woods's coach, right? Because the I guess the idea of coaching, it means that you've dedicated yourself to being a better coach. Not necessarily can Tiger Woods be a good coach to someone trying to learn how to play golf because he's focused on being the best player in the world. He just needs someone to help him get to that level. So, a lot of coaches will help you achieve more, get to be a high performer. Mentorship is informal. So coaching is very formal. So coaching is like, hey, Chad, we're going to meet on Tuesday at 7. Mentorship, it's not the transfer of information, but it's the transfer of experience. And mentorship is very informal. Sometimes it can be formalized, right? But this is the confusion that people have. Is he coaching me? So a coach can be your mentor, right? I have a lot of mentorship relationships with people that don't even know they're my mentors. For example, Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn has influenced in the way I think, uh, the way I look at business because he was a famous business philosopher, and he's been mentoring me for the past 20 years. Well, he never knew it, right? So there's this mentorship relationship that you can have with people, multiple people. There's that uncle that has that really great advice. He's also mentoring you in some way, right? You can call someone, and there's mentorship that will happen as a result. There's a lot of people in real estate that we don't have a formal mentorship mentee relationship, but when I have questions, I've built the relationships to the point where it's there's like mutual beneficial. It's like mutually beneficial. I'm gonna give something, not monetary, not always. It's not always monetary, but then I'm gonna get that mentorship in return. And those relationships have to grow and flourish, and you have to nourish the relationships. And then there is the more formalized type of mentorship, right? Where someone says, I'm going to mentor you, um, and this is my fee, right? And this is what they're gonna charge, and then they're gonna pass the experience. So my mentor didn't necessarily have a coaching program, right? Because it was informal in a way, right? It was just like, okay, what do I do? Right. And so he's just transferring his experience. And so what I've done is I've I've created a way that I can mentor as many people as possible through a system where I have individual coaches coaching my system, and I can transfer my experience to multiple people. And so there's that type of mentorship where, when someone says, "This is my mentor, this is what," but maybe it's not a direct mentorship. That's also a way of mentorship, right? So multiple different facets. Whenever anybody wants to learn anything, and I'm sure, I can't remember if you had a program or not. I don't think you did have a program, did you?
I don't know.
Yeah, but there's people that you're mentoring.
Hmm.
Right?
Yep.
It just happens. It's not a form. It's informal. It's an informal way of mentoring, right? There's people that come to you for questions. When someone's like, "Can I pick your brain?"
Mhm.
Right? You're mentoring at that point, right? Because you love what you're doing, but the problem is you're just not able to be everywhere all the time, and so everyone needs mentorship, coaching if they want to enter any new industry, or even if it's an industry that you've been there before, but you want to scale up, you want to be a high performer within that industry. I know that you're a real estate agent, and you need some your mentorship. There's probably mentors that you look up to, where you
Mhm.
have questions that you can go and ask those questions. So whether it's informal or formal, if it's paid or unpaid, it's absolutely necessary that you can tap into the mind of someone that has already has done what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's very well said, and you're right. I don't have a program, but there's probably a dozen people that I talk to on a regular basis that just want my advice on. Oh, thanks, Beverly, saying a great mentor. That just want my thoughts on things. So, and I just do, like you said, very informally. I don't have programs or
Yeah.
established timelines. And then on the flip side, there's people that I look up to and ask questions to, and it's a similar type of arrangement. I think if you do have something formal, I think that there could be a little bit more accountability. Like perhaps it does come a little bit more into that coaching platform where you're held accountable as opposed to just like asking someone for their experience.
Well,
Uh,
there's something to be said when you when you like pay money, right? When you invest in yourself, there's another you reach another level of accountability. It's like, oh, okay, I got, I'm not gonna waste my money here, right?
mhm.
It's just like a gym membership, right? And versus getting the personal trainer. The gym membership, it's only like $50 a month or whatever. It's easy not to go. But when you pay a personal trainer $10,000, you're gonna show up there. You're not gonna waste your money, right? It's like there's another level. You enter another level of accountability at that point.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because I think a lot of people feel that they can just learn on the go and they can trial and error. But I agree with you. There probably is someone that can, but I don't think that they're optimizing their chances of being a peak performer versus someone that does have a coach or mentor. So I'm glad you touched on that, and I want to go back 23 years now when you got that mentor and you acquired 11 properties in that first year. What did you extract from that mentor that allowed you to do that? Because that's a crazy amount of acquisitions in your first year.
So first of all, the investment was like a crazy investment, and the reason this guy said that he said that to me is to kind of like scare me away. But what he didn't know, I was more I had a high level of motivation and inspiration to get something done because I was about to lose everything. And so he basically said, do this, do this, do this. And my first deal was basically a conversion. I turned a duplex into a triplex, and then refied it, refied the money out. And like, to be honest with you, the very first time that I did that, I didn't understand it. Like, I don't know how I put money in, I get the exact money out, and I still hold the property. I'm in my early 20s. I barely even know how mortgages work. But I did it. I just did it anyways because I knew I was guided. by someone that had all of these properties. And basically I went back to my mentor and I said, okay, I did this. I got this money back. What do I do now? He said, do it again. Right? This is what he did. But there's a level of confidence that human beings will have, knowing that they can go back somewhere to ask questions, right? It reminds me of the story of John Asraf. You know John Asraf?
Hmm.
John Asraf. He was in The Secret, but he also wrote another book. It's called The Answer. And he's talking to one of his students, and one of his students just got a job as an insurance broker. And he says, John, I need your help. I just got this job as an insurance broker, and this is the job I'm going to feed my family with. And could I get 10 names from you, and that I could tell them that John sent me? And so, he's like, no problem. He goes into his study in his house, comes out with 10 names, gives it to the gentleman. The guy comes back a month later, and he's like, John, you won't believe it. Out of those 10, I closed all 10. It's incredible. I told him John sent me, and it was just like it was so easy because I knew that these people were warm. And so, if it's not too much to ask, could I get 10 more names? And so John says, yeah, no problem. Actually, here he went into his study, comes out with the white pages, the phone book. He's like, that's where I got them last time. You can have as many names as you want. Because psychologically, I mean, if you tell, hey, John, how many Johns are in the world, by the way? John sent me. Everyone knows a John, And so the confidence was there that it's like, oh, this is a warm lead. So obviously it's gonna work because John sent me. All of a sudden, this guy closed 10 deals because of the confidence. And so that's what coaching and mentoring does. It gives you the confidence to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done because you know that you can go back and ask questions. But I wasn't the type of person that asked many questions. When I was done, I would then go back and ask, so what do I do now? And basically what I would get was do it again. And then I went back and did it again. And every deal that I did, I would level up, and it would be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Do you still talk to Tony?
No.
No.
I lost touch.
Yeah, he served a specific point in time for you, and yeah.
That's a good question, because your mentor today could, you could surpass. You're always going to be, you need to level up and find people that are going to help you get to the next level, right? In my mind, this guy was so successful, it was out of this world. But now when I would look at the portfolio he had and where I am today, it's almost like, oh, whoa, I didn't like, seemed so big when I didn't have anything, but I just surpassed him to a point where I just needed different levels of mentorship. And I've always been that person to search for people that have the results that I'm looking for, and figuring out how to build relationships, whether they're paid or unpaid, or informal or informal, and just, being a sponge for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well said. So you said 11 properties in the first year, 22 years later, and answer this however you feel comfortable. What have you done after that first year, which was a big year for you?
So we went through a massive liquidation event last year, because we could, right? This was the opportunity where we can level, take some of those ugly ducklings and some of those, those struggling properties, and just like sell them for not ridiculous prices, Chad, redonkulous prices. And we were able to now level up, have good capital to get into really amazing assets. We're building brand new apartment buildings, 60 units, 16 units, 24 units, 44 units, brand new assets, things that I never even thought I would be a part of. But the portfolio looks close to, right now we're about 600 doors across Canada and the US. Um, all apartment buildings, all amazing, beautiful, gorgeous assets, and I would say just under 200 million in gross portfolio value.
Good for you. That's very impressive coming from immigrating to Canada, once immigrating, then once as a refugee, uh, going through high school, not really loving it, to having a $200 million portfolio. Good for you. That is a success story if I've ever heard one. So with
That's why I love this is the best country in the world, right? I mean, there's no way in hell I could have done that back home, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Canada has all of the opportunities. We're in the land of opportunity. You know, that's all I see around me. You know, it's like this is the promised land. We are in the best place in the world.
I agree with you. Well said. I wish it was 10, 20 degrees warmer, but there's
Hey,
always some kind
you
of
know what?
trade-off.
The beauty about Canada, and people ask me, "What's your favorite part about winter?" I say, "My favorite part about winter is Dominican Republic." Right? Because you have the ability to make as much money that you can go to wherever you wanna go, you know?
Mhm. So you've had a lot of success, and I congratulate you again on that. There's a reason you earned the godfather of real estate. On the other side, you had to have a lot of holding power to go through some tough economic times. You would have went through the dot-com bubble. That's probably where when you were starting your portfolio, actually,
I
and
actually started in '96. So,
so you had
when
a couple year leading up to it?
I started in business in '96, and people said, "You can't start a business now, there's a recession." And I said, "Okay, thank you." Uh, to be honest with you, I didn't even know the meaning of the word. Imagine if I knew the meaning of the word, it might have stopped me. But
That's
yeah,
so true.
it was the end of a recession. Yeah.
What's that one saying? It was on Mad Men, I think it was Don Draper, "Our worst fears lie in imagination."
Yeah.
And so if you do know the definition of recession, maybe that would have prevented you from starting your empire. So dot-com came, that might not have been as big of an impact, especially because you
Uh,
would have been early in your real estate
yeah.
portfolio?
Yeah, so the event that actually almost took me out was the 9/11.
Mhm,
So,
interesting.
leading towards nine so, dot com, actually was like 2000, right? 2000, and it so I just, that was starting to have an effect on me and my business, because, we had, like, especially in Ottawa, you had, Nortel and all these other like smaller like internet companies and tech companies that were hiring kids 18, 19, 20 years old just out of high school, giving them 80K a year, and they had a lot of disposable income, and they were everyone was spending money. It was like you couldn't lose anything you did. You were going to be successful. And then there was the that bubble bursted, and the money, the decisions were different, the way people shopped was different, and so that took me out. And then we get into 9/11, where it's everyone's behavior changed, right?
Mhm,
And I was getting product from the US, and that also had an impact because I couldn't get product. We had supply chain issues. Everything was halted. People went into isolation. People didn't leave their house for 6 months, going into the Gulf War. It was like a really, like, it was a real shift in humanity, as a that one event that had such a impact and ripple effect on so many things. And so I was in during all of that, I was starting my real estate. And so, what I wish is, like, I would have started earlier, so I could have taken advantage of all the opportunities. I started during opportunity phase, not knowing that this was such an opportunity phase, because I had no other way to compare, right? And then the prices and everything went crazy. I remember 2007, 2008. Um, People were just like buying any property at any price, regardless of interest rates or anything. People they were just going crazy. And when the crash happened in the U.S., And I remember during those times, 2007, 2008, we would go to these big networking events, standing room only. They were packed. Real estate. Everyone was talking about real estate. They bought this, they flipped that. The wholesalers, everyone was involved. And then when we went back in 2009, everyone was gone. Right, all the flippers, all the wholesalers, everything was gone, and the only people that were left, there's just a few multifamily guys. And so we're like, what happened? Where did everybody go? Right. And so I knew of the opportunities that I missed back in 2000, 2001, that I knew that this was my opportunity. 2009, money, like we didn't, the prices didn't correct as much here in Canada, but the money disappeared. And so when money disappears, you're left with being creative. And that's kind of where I learned how to be extremely creative. Vendor takebacks, agreements for sales, assumption of mortgages, all these creative strategies that like really help me uh, rocket launch my career. We are in the same situation today. And then I've been telling people since July. When was that? I can't remember the day that when they first did the 100 basis points was July. I can't remember the actual date. July 13th, actually, July 13th. I've been telling people since then, we are going to have an amazing 2023. In the next 10 to 12 months, you're going to see the most opportunity in real estate that we've ever seen. It's going to be bigger than the opportunities that we had back in COVID in 2020. It's going to be bigger than what we've seen in in back in 09 and 2010, or during the dot-com bust, or the recession in the early 90s. These next 10 to 12 months are months that, as a real estate investor, you're going to look back in hindsight and say, whoa, that was amazing.
Why do you think that is? What do you think's
I think
driving that?
I think the inflation, first of all, to control inflation, they use this lever called interest rates, right? So the interest rates are inflation is going up, right? And let me do it like this: inflation is going up. They're like, okay, let's push up the interest rates, and then like, okay, stabilize inflation, right? And then when you see deflation, they're like, okay, let's use this lever again, cheap money, which will kind of like, so they kind of like stabilize that. The problem that we have is that this lever doesn't work. This lever is the wrong lever. China's still under lockdown. Okay, most people don't really realize what the impact of that, but the impact is that we have a major supply chain issue that has been broken, and that has been happening for the past 2 years. You can't turn off the world for 2 years and not expect to have consequences. And so the supply chain is broken, which means it doesn't matter what you do with this interest rate lever, there's just no goods. And so when you have more money chasing less goods, you're going to see inflation. You're going to see everything go up. And so when they realize that, and what's going to happen with the interest rates is going to have a major impact on a lot of other markets, the money markets, the precious metals, crypto, all of these other markets where people are invested in. They're going to realize that the only safe place is in real estate. And then you're going to see that people are going to come back, and it's going to be crazier than it was in 2021. And that's the opportunity that we have. Right now, everyone's scared, right? Right now, real estate is not moving, and the prices aren't coming down. That should tell something. That should tell something to a lot of people. Why aren't the real estate? I mean, they're softening, but it's not ridiculous. Why? Because there's so much uncertainty everywhere else that even with the interest rate prices, people are still coming back to real estate. And so what is left for 2023 is creativity, baby. I don't see multifamilies or commercial real estate or industrial real estate. I don't see the prices coming down. I just see us getting more creative with the deals, assumptions, agreements for sales, vendor takebacks, all the things that back in 2021, if you would have asked, even if it would have even coming out of your mouth, if that came out of your mouth, they would have shut you down. They would have said, well, next, next. Now people are like, what? You want to buy my property, but you need some creative structure. Let's do it.
I completely agree with you. There's something about that tangible asset which should give people comfort, and it's able to generate revenue on top of that. So you have a physical asset that is generating rental income, which can be used to pay your expenses and cash flow and everything that goes with it. So I'm fully bullish on the long-term outlook of real estate as well. What do you say to investors that perhaps bought at the peak of the market? So maybe they bought an apartment building or they bought an industrial property at the absolute peak of the market. I agree there isn't a collapse of pricing right now, but for someone that is in a position where they have to sell, they are selling into a down market and they probably would have to take a loss for buying something at the peak of the market, call it earlier this year, to selling it right now if they had to panic sale. What do you say to somebody that's put themselves in that kind of position? Is it as simple as ride this out because the market will be better 18 months from now? Or what would you say to someone in that position?
Yeah. So first things first. If you're in a position right now where you're in trouble or whatever, you have to see it as a learning opportunity, right? Um, Chad, when is the worst time to sell?
Anytime. I don't ever want to sell.
But when is the absolute worst time?
When you have to, when
When
you're
you
forced to.
Yeah, when you're forced to. That's the absolute worst time. And so when I get into real estate, any piece of real estate that I buy, I ask myself a simple question. If I had to hold on to this for the rest of my life, would I be okay? And if the answer is yes, then I move forward, right? So if someone is stuck in that position right now, because it's easy for me to say, and if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're listening to my words and you're like, wow, it's easy for him to say that because he's not in that position. Well, I want you to remember how you feel so you make better decisions moving forward, right? Because as you said, you're not selling anything. I'm not selling anything. I was selling things back in 2021 because I could, right? That was the window of opportunity. I got out of that business after July 13th. Now, if you are in a position where you have to, is there a way that you can put yourself in a position where you don't have to, where it's nice to, right? For example, can you reposition the property? Can you find a way to bring on another partner? Can you flip it to another structure? Can you add more revenue to the property? You know, sometimes, yeah, we can cut our losses, but sometimes, you know what? We need to see things from a different perspective, right? We get stuck in viewing situations with the same eyes that we got into them with. And if we're like all human beings, I'll give you an example, like a banana, right? Human beings look at the handle, right? They look at the handle and they're like, oh, that's where I grab it, right? That's where I'm supposed to open the banana, right? Human beings, they look at handles and they're like, that's the solution. I grab the handle, right? But if you see how a monkey opens a banana, the monkey opens it from the other side. Because if you open a banana from the other side, it's actually a lot easier to open that banana, right? But because we're so focused on one solution, we forget that there's all these other solutions that if you just stepped out of your eyes and looked at the situation from a different perspective, is there a way to optimize, maximize, stabilize? Is there a way to create more revenue? Is there a way for you to ride this out? So in 18 months from now, we're having a different conversation. The easiest thing to do is to cut your losses. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Sometimes it's going to be too distracting. It's going to take too much of your energy that you could be doing other things. At the very least, you have a learning experience and know that, okay, that if you took a loss of a 200,000 or 300,000, let those be the let that be the best investment that you ever made in yourself, in learning to never put yourself in that position again.
Hmm.
And if and then you move on and maybe you do great things, or can you save the property? Can you figure out, other ways to look at this banana on how to open this banana when it might be a path of least resistance for you?
I can't wait to have a banana next because I'm gonna have to try and open it that way. I love everything you said on there, and I think that this really does underscore the value of looking at any opportunity you have. So if you own an investment and you're unsure what to do, and perhaps you're nervous about what's happening in the next year, if especially someone on a floating rate, maybe they've had a 300 basis point increase in their debt. If they've a vacant property, that can be a lot of stress. I think it's important, like brainstorm these ideas. Call
Yeah.
someone that you know that's maybe you have like an informal mentor, you have someone you can just call and really brainstorm these ideas. Because like we've talked about, Alfonso, I'm a big believer in long term. Real estate will do well over the long term, but those hiccups in the short term can be painful. But if you
Yes.
panic sell, like exactly as you said, that's the worst time to sell because you have no leverage. And if
Yeah.
you're selling at that right time, probably at the wrong time, it probably means the market is soft, probably means you're going to lose money. So really explore every option that you have. It could be getting a short-term lease in there at less than market rate just to get somebody in there to pay cash flow so you stem the bleeding. There's reposition it, repurpose it, bring on a partner. All those things you mentioned, I think are very helpful to show someone that there are options beyond just having to sell because panic kicks in.
Yeah.
So I think you've sorry, were you going to say
No,
something there too?
I was gonna say sometimes it helps to bring someone from outside of the industry, because we're all looking at the same banana with the same eyes, right?
Mhm.
When you bring someone out from outside the industry, you're gonna find that they're gonna have solutions that you didn't think about before.
Hmm. Oh, well said. You had a great compliment from Beverly on here, White, if you don't mind pulling it up. Chad Alfonso is by far my favorite guest you've had. So smart and relatable, not only in real estate but in life. That's a huge compliment for you, Alfonso, because I think I've had 80 guests or so on this, and I would agree with Beverly. I'm loving everything you're sharing from the story of your humble roots to growing a $200 million portfolio, and you can see that you're doing this with a lot of passion. You have that style of wanting to help people and provide value. So I really appreciate everything that you've offered so far as well. I guess as we wrap up here, and we still have 10 minutes. So if anyone has any questions or comments for Alfonso, please throw it in the chat. But what do you see as an outlook? And you've referenced this already, and perhaps you've already answered this, but I'll give you an opportunity to add to that. What do you see 2023? What do you see going forward? And I know it's impossible to have a crystal ball looking out multiple years, but just what you're planning on, what you're kind of hoping is like your best case scenario or most likely scenario.
If you get into a situation where um, you can be highly creative, think outside the box, and maybe that comes back to education, mentorship, and coaching, right? To figure out how to look at these. Every property is a puzzle, right?
Mhm.
And if you have a true seller and a true buyer, there's no reason why you can't do a deal, right? As long as you're going into it with a truly win-win mindset, right? So if everyone wins, if you ask yourself what's in it for them, you will get exactly what you're looking for. And so for 2023, get really creative. Get really creative. Think outside the box, because you're going to be solving a lot of people's issues. 2021, it was a perfect time to sell. I had I had properties on the market. After July 13th, that was the end of my selling career, in the beginning of hunting season. Okay? And hunting season means that now we're out there looking for opportunities. Anybody that uh, wanted, it was anybody that had properties that it was nice to sell, or they wanted to cash out of the market, that opportunity is already gone. The people that have their properties on the market are people that are in a position where they may be motivated to sell. And how do you tap into more of that motivation? Time will make them more and more and more and more and more motivated. December 7th, tomorrow, we're getting another interest rate hike. What that's going to look like, we don't know. But ultimately, what 2023 is going to look like is going to be a massive opportunity. And if the people watching this right now are thinking about hunkering down, taking a break, you're going to kick yourself in 2024, because 2023, this will be in history. You're going to see you're going to see a massive wealth transfer coming on our way, more than we've ever seen. 96 to early 2000s, 09, April 2020. I think in terms of like commercials, in the commercial space, you're going to see a massive wealth transfer.
I'll reach out to you in 2023 sometime and get you to come back on, because I want to continue this conversation. Definitely. Wrapping up, what are you doing in Tampa Bay? It's and in kind of in addition to that as well, how can people follow you and follow up with you?
Yeah, so basically, Tampa Bay, we're doing boots on the ground. We have a boots on the ground event in Tampa, Florida, and for 4 days. So December 14th to December 18th, people can follow along, come with me, walk properties, analyze properties. We have activities planned. We have service providers. If people have any interest of investing in the U.S., they can come through, have that experience with me. I think there's a few tickets left. You can go to Eventbrite and type in "boots on the ground" Alfonso Cuadra, and you can come check me out that way. Other than that, we have lots of different events in the new year, or you know what? At the very least, come to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Alfonso Cuadra. I have over 1,000 videos there of content. If anything I say there resonates with you, then reach out.
Yeah, I'm glad that you and I connected in the first place, and I'd encourage people to go check out your YouTube. I know Beverly had put a couple comments in there as well with your website and your LinkedIn, and I think that there was one comment from Simon Wyatt. If you're able to pull that up, thanks Simon for the question. My mentor Richard, I can't pronounce that last name. Alfonso, you spent a little bit of time in Montreal. Can you pronounce that last name?
Lebeb. No, we're all getting massacred.
Yeah, I apologize, Simon. I can't pronounce his last name. Who I had the privilege to work with in my late 20s. Mentorship is being able to change trajectory. It's part of the mastery. Yeah, well said, Simon. I completely agree with that. It's there's a lot of value to mentorship, and I think Alfonso, you've done a great job of explaining that. So once again, thank you very much for taking the time to share all this insight. I just have one comment as well before you shut it off to Alfonso. I did just Wyatt, but I just wanted to say thank you again, Alfonso. I really do appreciate your time and insights on this.
Thank you, Chad. When it comes, and this is why I invited you to come and speak to my group. You brought so much value in terms of industrial, you really know your stuff. And from the second we first connected, we hit it off, and I can't wait to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, it'll either be in Tampa Bay or somewhere warm, hopefully. But yes, I do very much look forward to that as well. And then I just want to end real quickly. I'm doing a giveaway, giving away almost $1,000 worth of stuff, some really high-end flashlights, a laser measure. We'll put the video in the description here or in the comments. All you need to do is just go in, leave a comment, hashtag flashlight or hashtag laser, just so I know what contest you're entering. You can do both if you like as well. And we're doing that giveaway next Tuesday at the same time. Wyatt and I are going to come on. We're going to read some of the comments, do a live giveaway on it as well. And one thing I'd really encourage people to do is be creative on some comments. Like I've said before, you can make fun of me if you want. You can say something mean. I'm got pretty thick skin, I think. You can say something nice too. I always like nice comments, but just leave any kind of comment, because I think it'll be interesting if Wyatt and I have some funny comments to read next week. So we'll put that in there again. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you didn't like it. Always looking for feedback. Most importantly, go check out Alfonso's YouTube channel and connect with him on LinkedIn. Alfonso, thanks for sitting through that last little part. Really do appreciate your time again.
I always say people, we love our haters.
Absolutely.
They're just as important.
Love it. Okay, well, thanks again, Alfonso, and thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Catch you next week.